Welcome back to the Mintner Method. I'm your host, Andrew Mintner, and on today's episode/video, we're going to dive into the Week 3 matchup of Memphis versus Florida State. So this is a matchup that I spoke about earlier in the summer when predicting, playoff contenders or just the overall, landscape of the AAC and the ACC. So this is kind of a polarizing moment, and this analysis is going to be slightly more than just the surface level statistics, because you kind of need the nuance when we're looking at these things. Okay, so on the base level, Florida State has looked absolutely horrendous, and I mean the statistics would say that 116th in points per predicted points per attempt, absolute dead last in havoc total, 133rd in defensive back havoc total. And then, look at these, predicted points per attempt for passing, 128. So just god-awful, horrendous. And Memphis, on the other hand, they look formidable for what it's worth, even though they played Northern Alabama and Troy. So, but this is something that, for me, it is a clash of your styles, right? So Memphis going into Florida State as only a 6.5-point dog raises gigantic alarm bells. They released this line last week at 3.5, and they just shot it up. I know that people are thinking like Florida State is in disarray. DJ has looked horrendous. Mike Norvell doesn't look like he can call an offense. All that. All those things can be true. But when we take a look at this from a talent standpoint, we need to understand that from a pure talent standpoint, Florida State has more depth and more overall talent, just in general. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the thing that really sticks out to me is this is going to be a game where the trenches is going to be the deciding factor. Now, this is the type of game. Florida State struggled against Georgia Tech and Boston College. And struggling against those two teams really gives you kind of the blueprint on how you want to beat a Florida State team. You have to out-physical them at the point of attack on both sides of the ball. Memphis is not going to do that. That's not how they are built. Okay, so if they can't do that and they're going to try to finesse them, that plays into Florida State's strengths overall. Now, I know you're going to be like, well, Andrew, look at this rushing game log last week for Memphis. They ran for 211 rushing yards. That's 7.28 yards per clip. Versus Troy. Troy's better than North Alabama. Yeah, I understand all that. But let's take a real look at it, okay? Troy is 129th in defensive returning production. They're not good. They were good last year, but they're not fucking good this year. That's why they were 20-point dogs. So, I'm not buying that. If anything, I'm looking at this up here and I'm like, what the hell is this against Northern Alabama? That's eye-opening. So that is kind of, and it shows here in the advanced statistics, 99th in stuff rate against those two teams, the teams they're supposed to dominate. 99th in stuff rate. That's not going to get it done. Obviously these statistics for Florida State, I'm looking past them simply because they played teams that are going to give them trouble. Now, obviously, you're going to sit there and say, well, Andrew, they were double-digit favorites in both games. They're the better team on paper. Well, yeah, a lot of people thought that. But we're traveling to Dublin, Ireland to play Georgia Tech. That's not going to be easy, period. The only team that ever plays good there is Notre Dame, and that might be the only place they play good at because I don't even want to get into it. But yeah, so that the loss to Boston College is a little more unexcusable, but they're playing against Boston College, an entire NFL coaching staff that has revamped that team, along with Tommy Castellanos, who is a premier athlete at the quarterback position, not some scrub. So then I'm sure you're going to be like, well, Andrew, Seth Hennigan's very good, because he is very good. But that's not the type of quarterback that's going to beat this type of defense filled with athletes. I digress. Now, if we look at the returning production standpoint, Florida State was set up to do really well this year. Now, that hasn't happened out the gate, and obviously I don't think they're playoff bound. I don't think they're ACC championship bound. I just think it's going to be a down year, and they lost a lot. But these are formidable returning production numbers from formidable units, and I think that's going to show up. Memphis, on the other hand, they have a very good offensive returning production. I did an episode on them about how they're probably one of the top offenses this year. This defense, though, gives me a lot of concern. Now, it has not shown to improved greatly overall. Now, let's take a look at these stats on the defensive side just so we can give them their due. Now, these are pretty good. They're looking pretty solid. But I'm still concerned with what it's going to look like against a physical team. Now, for what it's worth, DJ, the quarterback for Florida State, has looked awful. And that's totally fair. But we cannot sit here and act like he's not a serviceable quarterback. He was solid at Oregon State on a team that did not have a ton of talent. They were just, they're not a recruiting powerhouse like Florida State. Now, the other part, Florida State gets a week of rest. They get a week to prepare for this Memphis team, and I think that's going to make a big, big difference. Now, as we look at some of the advanced metrics, you have, Troy here on their scoring opportunities, only 3, but they scored on every single one. That's kind of alarming. 2 touchdowns and a field goal. Then you have Memphis, obviously elite offensively. 6 opportunities, made the best of them. And, there's a lot of green on these charts. They played really well against Troy. But, when I'm looking at it from the flip side, if they were to face the type of physicality that Florida State has had to face in the first couple games, I do not predict they would have won those games. Now, they could have, obviously, but this is not the blueprint to beat this type of team. If you want to beat Florida State, you have to limit the possessions, you have to be physical at the point of attack, and that's just not who Memphis is. That's not who they've been since. They haven't been that. They weren't that when Mike Norvell was there. They haven't been there since that. That's just not the type of offense they run. And there's nothing wrong with that. These are just schematic differences when it comes to, the matchups that they're facing. Also, this line at 6.5 is egregiously low, because if Florida State was coming in here, even winning one of those 2 games, the line would be 9.5, 10, no doubt, because that's right around what it was at the beginning of the season for the game of the year line. So that right there just shows me that there is a little bit of an overreaction to what we've seen so far. Now, I'm obviously not a Mike Norvell fanboy. I did not pick Florida State to win the ACC this year. I did not pick them to make the playoff, But I'm also not blind. I know they're good. I know they have talent. That's why their win total was set at 9.5. Maybe it should have been lower, but nobody predicted they were going to lose both games out the gate. Now, if they implement the same type of offense and plan that they've been trying to implement with heavy play action and physical running, they're going to succeed in certain areas of this game. Now, this is concerning when we look at their early downs. Now, from an early downs, they're 82nd overall on first and second down. That's not ideal. That's not a good start, right? Memphis, on the other hand, has done really well, very well in rushing the ball against defenses that not so great. So kind of what they should be doing. So when we go to the defensive side of the ball, that's where Florida State's been taking a drubbing. And that's because when you play against these physical type teams, they're just going to get the best of you on first and second down. It makes third down much harder if they even get to third down. Not good. Just not good. And then Memphis on that side has been pretty solid. They've been good. Playing anemic offenses, doing well like they should. I normally stick to an analytic standpoint and like the analysis overall. But we have to take into fact that this is a buy low spot. And the public is out on Florida State. They're out. They're like, this team's garbage. Mike Norvell's going to get fired. All those things could be true, but the line is much lower than it was and what it really should be from a power ranking standpoint. So that's going to be it for my take on this matchup. As always, if you have any suggestions, comments, concerns, maybe you want to tell me I'm wrong, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, you can reach out to me on Twitter. You can leave a comment on the video. You can send me an email at themintnermethod@gmail.com. And if you like the content, if you want to see more of it, you can like, subscribe, comment on the video. This is going to be probably the format for a while. I really like this. It's easier for me to discuss and kind of show you my breakdown and my nuanced thoughts. But yeah, so other than that, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take care.